Welcome back to Built Fabrications. We got new parts, new shoes, new camera. Let's go. Come on.
You can see the riding on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements.
Today marks the start of the reassembly for the rear suspension on the C10 chassis. And to do that, I'm going to be using a Classic Performance Products 3.5 drop kit coupled with a 2-inch drop block in the rear, and whenever we move to the front, I'm going to be doing a 2-inch drop spindle. So that together is going to give us a 5-7 drop, so 5 inches in the front, 7 in the rear. And everything you need to do the rear is, you're seeing it right here in front of you. So in the kit, you're going to get 5-inch drop springs, new mounts for it, rear sway bar, new shocks, which also have the mounting points. These are the sway bar end links that also come in it with all the bushings. New track bar for the rear, and then in addition to that, these are bump stops that you get with the C-notch kit, which you are going to need to do if you want to do a 5.7 drop. You're going to need a C-notch frame, which if you're not sure how to do that and you haven't seen it, I do have a video up of how we do that. And then another thing that we're going to need right here is, if you remember the disassembly video, I had mentioned that whenever you lower a truck, the angle of the rear shock gets pushed forward just from lowering it down. And so this kit here accommodates for that drop, and it repositions the mounting points of the shock. So essentially it would be, you can see how this would be. This is how the shock would be. And then we're going to relocate the top mount and the front mount, push the front forward and the top backwards, and that's going to put our shock straight again. And that's going to fix any drivability issues that we have with suspension articulation, as the rear end would go up and down. If you don't have the shock positioned vertical, it's not going to work as well as it's designed to do. Before I start assembling everything, I wanted to show you guys a quick tip. If you want to try to find out what rear gear is in your rear end without having to take apart or take off the cover and count all the teeth on the ring and pinion, something you can do, if you see I put a piece of masking tape on the top of the tire, and then I put another piece of tape on the pinion yoke. I'm sure it's probably a little hard to see, it's dark blue on black, but it's there. And something that you could do, this works for open differentials. For what I'm going to show you here, you want to block the one wheel, and then you rotate the tire, and you want to see how many times this spins a full revolution per every time the wheel does a full revolution. So I'm going to start spinning it. So right now we've got 1, and a half. So it's about 1.5, a little bit past 1.5, because the tape's now facing over here. We're back up on the top. And so for an open differential, you'd want to multiply that by 2. So 1.5 times 2 is 3. It's a little past that, and since this is a Chevy rear end, we know that that's going to be a 308. All right, so the order reassembly is going to go U-bolt, drop block, then you're going to do trailing arm, followed by your lower shock bracket, and the flat side is going to face towards the front of the truck on the inside. And then I should have grabbed my U-bolt nuts, but I didn't. So I'm going to get this put on, and I'll tighten everything after I get it all together. And I'll do the other side. The next thing I'm going to do while I have the axle out from underneath the truck is I'm going to go ahead and set the rear springs on. So you've got the rear spring mount. It sits inside the coil like that. And then you've got the long bolt. You want to use, for the bottom, you want to use the one that has a welded nut. The top, it has a nut and a bolt. So then you bring your long bolt from underneath. And get that tightened down. So I'm going to do that on both sides, and then we'll get this axle wheeled underneath the truck. So with the axle back up underneath the truck, the next thing I want to get installed are the new bump stops that are going to go in the C-notch here in the top on both sides. And then after that, we're going to move to the upper shock mounts. So with the bump stops in, the next thing we're going to want to install are the upper shock mounts. And you want to make sure that the holes are facing the rear of the truck. The next thing that we need to get installed is the track bar, and I realize not everybody knows all about suspension components. So if you're not aware, what a track bar does is it keeps the axle aligned or centered left to right, because just having two links, the trailing arms on the back of a truck, it does not prevent side-to-side motion. So that's what track bar does. So we're gonna get this in and then adjust it to get the center, and I'll show you that more in depth whenever we get it installed. So just before I get that track bar, and I want to give you an example of the suspension movement without it in. So you can see right now you have a lot of stuff falling, but the springs allow the frame to move independent of the axle and everything. So that'll show you whenever we get the track bar put in. So you're going to want to pull measurement from the same point on one side to the other. So from the tire, inside the tire, which is probably not the best place to pull it, to the outside of the C-notch is about 8.5 inches on this side. It's right at about 8.5 inches on this side as well. So it's pretty close. From just putting it in there. Whenever the truck is fully assembled, you're going to need to get alignment obviously on the front for sure, and then you just get a four-wheel alignment, and then they'll adjust this in and get it exactly correct. So just as another test, now that we have the track bar installed, you can see that any movement that you are seeing is just the springs compressing from a shaking, which is obviously totally normal, but you're not having any of that, the frame swaying back and forth on top of the axle. So now we're going to go ahead and get the one shock installed. And this part here is always like an Olympic event. Whenever you pop off this band, trying to get this shock bolt in the eyelet, or the bushing, whatever you want to call it, before it passes. Oh, these shocks aren't too bad. Pro tip, make sure you install your bushings. For those of you screaming at the TV, phone, laptop, desktop, whatever you're watching me on, I heard you. I was wondering why I was compressing so much with the washer. I was like, man, that bushing should really be stopping it. So you want to put a little bit of grease on this on both sides. Just slide it on in. So I'm running into a problem installing the shocks where on the inside, the top of the shock is hitting the bottom of the bolt. So I'm gonna need to flip all 4 of these on both sides. I got the bolts flipped, but in typical fashion, my bolt is too big for my bushings. So I need to drill these out. I don't have a vise yet, so that's probably gonna be a plan for tomorrow. So yeah, that's fantastic. So that's gonna shut us down on the shocks for tonight. The last thing that we need to do that I'm gonna move on to is gonna be the rear sway bar. So for our sway bar end link mounts, we need to measure 20 inches from this oval hole right here down this way, and then 2 inches up. And that's where we're gonna mark and drill our hole for this top mount. I got the hole drilled out, got the mount on, and I just loosely ran the sway bar end link in there. So now I'm gonna do the same to the other side so we get that mounted on both points. And then after that, we'll just be swinging this up, marking out wherever the clamps for the bushing hit, and then drill those out and get that bolted up. So I'm gonna go hit the other side and I'll get back with you. I got both sides mounted and it's just free swinging. I got the axle jacked up so I could get a better look underneath the trailing arms. And I'm running into another problem. I can get you guys in here in a second to get a better look. But the problem I'm having is whenever I go to, that's super sketchy. But swing this up to where it needs to be. The 2 mounting points, the one lands on a flat part of the metal that I could drill through to mount, and then this back side is landing in the crease in between the 2 sections of this trailing arm. So I got to do some more. I got to look into this and see if I could find out what the problem may be, if it's set up for, you know, stock height and I need to do some adjustments to accommodate for the lowering kit, and that might affect where this lands or whatnot. So yep, I'm pretty much getting shut down for tonight. It's about midnight anyways. Gotta finish up the mounting points on that, on the sway bar, figure that out, and then I need to get those bushings drilled out for the shocks. And then this is pretty much wrapped up. But like I said, I'm gonna call it for tonight and I will get back with you guys later. So I got these drilled out, and as you can see, I marred the hell out of them, but they fit. So can't wait to destroy the bushings on the shock, but I'm just gonna load those up with a lot of grease on the outside and hopefully it doesn't tear it up too bad. So I'm gonna get these pressed back in. Luckily, for whatever reason, only 2 of these were undersized, and then the other 2 fit just fine, so I don't have to drill them out. So I'm gonna get these guys greased up, back in the shocks, and then we'll get those shocks mounted on the truck. I got both sides in. I just have them held in with vice grips for now, just to do a mock-up test again so I could find all my holes. As you can see on the outside, so that will line up pretty flush right there. It obviously won't be touching. There's a little gap here now to this clamp. And same thing for this side. I beveled the edges a little bit. Same thing for here. And you can see where that's gonna clamp down. So now I just need to mark where I'm gonna put the holes, get the holes drilled. After I have the holes drilled in the plate, I'll mark it out on these trailing arms and then get those drilled and get the hardware in. We'll be done. So the new problem I'm running into, which of course, there's got to be 1 or 12 of those, is I'm pretty sure that whenever I was cutting my steel plate with the plasma cutter and then doing all the work that I did with the grinding, I unintentionally heat treated the steel and hardened it. And so certain areas I'm able to drill holes, like on this side of the plate. On this side of the plate, I was obviously able to get my holes drilled. And then other areas, like you see this hole, I was able to drill on the top and the bottom. But whenever I get into the middle of the plate, my drill bit is just spin on it like it is for this area, like a top, and it's not going through or anything. I'm using brand new, I got cobalt bits, titanium bits, brand new, just unpackaged them, and the steel in certain areas is just laughing at it. Same thing with the other plate, so I'm gonna try to anneal this to get the hardness out of it. And I'm gonna have to get it red hot, then put it in the drill press and drill it while it's hot. So, got my raws on, which should please some of you guys who are screaming blasphemy about me wearing shorts and a t-shirt and oftentimes flip-flops doing some of my work. So safety third, I'm doing it because I don't want hot metal to be flying at me when I'm drilling it. Hot above normal levels. So I'm gonna get this in, get it heated up, and hopefully that's gonna fix this 815th problem that I've had so far on this project. Well, I gotta throw in the towel again, another night, but I was able to get one more hole drilled. Surprisingly, the Hobo Freight step bit came in and helped out with that quite a bit, so pretty impressed there. Yeah, I think annealing it helped a little bit, but propane, I don't think is getting this hot enough that it's not getting it that red hot that it really would need to be truly effective. So I'm gonna need carbide bits. It's hard to find those at local hardware stores, like good ones. Anything that's out there is just kind of FUBAR carbide bits, but I'm gonna try to find the best version of whatever I can, because if I try to order anything, it's not gonna be in time to get this video out. So with that being said, I'm gonna pack it in for tonight, try to figure out a solution, and be back at it. So we're back in the shop again. It's another day. I just went and I picked up a carbide drill bit from Ace, and it recommends to run 2,000 RPM for hardened steel. So I did a pulley swap in the drill press. So now we're set to about 2,050 is what it's rated for. So hopefully this does the trick. So that's gonna be a carbide bit for the win. Awesome, now we gotta get the other plate done and keep on going. So I got this driver's side fully bolted up and mounted. You can see it's all painted up and fully installed. I wasn't able to get the other side done yet. The carbide bit that I got worked great for that first hole and started a couple other ones, but it wore out. So I'm gonna need to get another drill bit to finish it off, and I need to stop the video off here if I want to get it out on time. But this is pretty much how it's gonna look. I mean, it's how it'd be mounted. It has a little bit of an angle down, but whenever the load from all the weight of the bed and everything gets loaded on it, that should level out pretty good. Another thing that I forgot to mention, since the truck is lowered, another reason besides having to do those offsets, I had to move this bar because I had a really steep angle in it. These are the holes right here, you know, it's one per side, that the instructions say to drill out. That's 20 inches from this oval hole. I found it best off for me. There's actually a pre-existing hole that I ended up using. I just had to open it up to 7/16, and then I moved this forward, and that made it so that it was a little bit lower for the front, and then the angle back here, I was able to mount it a little bit higher up on the trailing arm versus down lower around here. It would have been centered to level this bar out more. And then, like I said in the last clip, whenever we get the weight on the truck, it's gonna level it out even more. So if you're doing 5/7 drop, I would recommend just going ahead and using that first pre-existing hole instead of having to drill another one and have to mess around with it. The instructions do say that if your vehicle's lowered, you might have to make some adjustments, but it said adjustments would be in the bolt and sleeve, that you might have to shorten it or whatever else, which I don't see how that would be the case, but whatever. This worked out for me. I need to finish the other plate, get that bolted in, and this is complete. All in all, I'm very satisfied with the Classic Performance products, 3/5 drop plus the 2 inches of drop that I added with the blocks on the rear. I'm very satisfied with everything. Good quality parts, everything went together. It comes with all the hardware that you need and set up. So I definitely recommend it to you if you're gonna be doing the same thing on a 67 to 72 truck of your own. And problems happen. It's the nature of the beast. You gotta adapt and overcome. Don't give up. I ran into quite a few on this project, between having my hardened steel that I unintentionally hardened, which it happens, and the drill bits that obviously set me back, but you just have to keep on adapting to fix the issues. And then, like I had mentioned, with the mounting points on the sway bar was another point of problem that I had to overcome for that. But it happens. Don't worry about it. Don't get down. Just think it out, work your way through it. To follow along with the build process on the 72 C10 that we have here, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And I appreciate everybody who is subscribed and everybody who's been watching the channel and helping it grow. I do appreciate it very much, and I'm trying to get better at my end of things, and will continue to do so. So thank you again to everybody who's been very supportive in the comments and by liking the video and everything, getting it in the algorithm. Get outside, get wrenched on something, piss off your neighbor, disappoint your mom, and until next time, keep on keeping on.